It's so cool to see two different directors direct the same scene and come up with something totally different. And I love what both of them have done. And it's funny because I think I had like a really clear picture of what this story should have been, was like before going into Double Exposure, but now it's like, I don't know. They've opened so many more possibilities, which is, I think, a really beautiful thing.
It's cool to see specifically what two different conductors can bring to the score. I mean, I'm very interested in the sort of expressive risk and danger of, of live performance.
With Double Exposure, it's fine. It's like, it's a work in progress. Like, I'm taking risks, and if we fail, that's beautiful because I learned so much from that, and that's the whole point of it. 10 Days in a Madhouse is inspired by Nellie Bly, who's an investigative reporter in the 1900s, and she wrote a book called 10 Days in a Madhouse. I read an article about all these things that she did. She did amazing things where she traveled around the world trying to beat Jules Verne's Around the World in 80 Days, and she also willingly committed herself, pretended to be crazy, so that she could be put into the Blackwell Asylum for women, and just to report on the conditions. And so she discovered that the conditions were so bad and people lost their mind. I remember reading it and thinking, why is this not an opera? We're playing with live voice, so Kendra and Anastasia will sing, and then it will be manipulated live through some effects that are in Ableton. Assuming that we can move successfully from a purely electronic world to an acoustic world and it doesn't sound bad, and then we can merge the two together, I think it's a really neat way to also show someone's perspective, like whose perspective should we be watching this story, like through whose eyes. I think especially in this story, there's a big, it's really ambiguous as to who can be trusted, who is stable. In the beginning, we don't know if Nellie is stable or not, and the doctor we trust, and by the end of that we should not trust the doctor, and Nellie is still ambiguous. So yeah, what I think is really cool about adding electronics in is that we can create like a totally different space that could be someone's different head space or a different time period.
The Rose Elf is the name of a fairy tale of Hans Christian Andersen, but he really stole the story from Boccaccio. And Boccaccio story comes from the Decameron, and it's this very lurid, savage, sort of incest-tinged love story. That ends in tragedy. Hans Christian Andersen sort of had this weird, lurid human tragedy watched by this magical elf creature who sort of deals the evil murderer brother his comeuppance, as kind of cosmic vengeance or retribution. At the time when they asked me to write something for the first Double Exposure in 2016, I was really interested in the morphology of fairy tales and these stories and these patterns, these images, these kind of like idées fixes of the mind that occur and reoccur in different combinations across time, across different cultures, and like what they might say about the way we think, we understand, we perceive. I love the thrill of live performance, but with Double Exposure, and actually sort of just increasingly with everything, I find myself like so interested in rehearsal. I love the discovery. I love being in the room for stagings. It's so cool. It only happens in opera. Like the way people relate to the music. The way that they have to. They physicalize it. They have to like possess it. I just love the like wild improvisatory place that performers can get to, and I love what that brings to music, and I love that like a specific music, a familiar music or an unfamiliar music can just like inspire that.